好，观众们好，这里是一个特别节目哈。那待会儿呢，方伟要给您采访的是加州州长竞选的领跑人，那共和党候选人 Steve Hilton 哈。那今年的中期选举，除了国会的归属之外，最大的看点，在我看来哈，就是加州的选举。加州2场选举非常值得看。第一个就是加州的选民身份证的一个公投法，这个将深刻的影响加州的未来。那么这个我们知道2个选举法案啊，一个叫做联邦的 Save America Act 拯救美国法案，现在看起来卡在参院中。那加州有加州的版本哈，加州有他自己的叫拯救加州法案呢，但不叫拯救加州，就是这个意思哈。那另外一个看点呢，就是加州州长的选举。我们都知道，在一个深蓝的加州，那加州州长选举有什么可看的呢？对不对？但是呢，今年很有意思的是，在相当长的时间内，2位共和党的候选人呢，长时间在加州领先第1跟第2名，因为加州的初选是在6月2号最后结束哈，那就是前2名，不管你是民主党还是共和党，那么都会出现来在11月份竞选加州州长。所以呢，那两个的候选人都领先，但现在已经出现一些变化。但不管怎么说，那共和党中2位中再领先的这位人呢，就是 Steve Hilton 啊，今天来到方伟的节目啊，我给大家就是为我们介绍一下他为什么参选。他为什么能够领先？他为什么认为在深蓝的民主党的加州他有任何的机会？另外呢，他会跟我们讲，他其实跟我们很多的观众朋友都是一样的哈，和听众朋友，他其实是个移民的儿子啊，第1代移民的儿子。所以给他介绍一下哈，Steve Hilton 呢，他爸爸妈妈呢是1956年匈牙利革命之后逃离共产党统治的匈牙利的难民，所以他是东欧反共难民的后代。那么然后呢，他在英国读的书，毕业于牛津大学哈，主修的是哲学、政治跟经济学叫做 philosophy, politics and economy economics。所以在英国，这是英国精英的标准训练3个专业一起学哈。那么在2005年到2012年的8年期间呢，他担任是英国前首相大卫卡麦隆的首席策略师。在2012年呢，他移居加州住在北加州的 Mountain View 哈。那然后呢，他加入斯坦福大学的胡佛研究所担任访问学者。在2017年川普就任之后呢 ，Steve Hilton 呢就加入了福克斯新闻，主持周日的晚间政论节目，叫 The Next Revolution 一直主持到2023年，就做了6年时间。他写了2本书，第一本是2015年写的书，叫做 More Human 这里头还带有英国式的叫中间派的改革色彩然后呢，在2018年川普上任之后呢，他就写了一本书，叫做 Positive Populism。就是明确拥抱川普的川普主义主张还给权力给人民打破精英的垄断。他这次竞选呢，他的一个提出的竞选口号是他自己创的一个词，叫做 Califordable， 就是 California 跟 affordable 一样这可负担的加州的意思。好，下面呢，我们就请这个 Steve Hilton 出场，我们来跟他一起谈一谈他为什么要竞选这个加州州长。All right, Steve, welcome to our show.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Okay, tell us about yourself. Okay, what motivates you to run for governor of California?
Well, I love this state so much. It's the most amazing place in the world. I moved here with my wife and my sons in 2012 from England. I taught at Stanford University. I started a business here. I had a new career in the media, and I just think California is the best place in the world, but we can see it's been run very badly. It's a very bad situation if you're a working class California, if you're trying to run a small business. Most of my career has been in business. I was born in the UK to Hungarian parents. They were refugees from communism. I grew up in a working class family in England. My stepfather, also Hungarian, he worked construction. I would help out on construction sites. My first job was project manager for a construction company. But I went to Oxford University. I had a good education. I started businesses, worked in politics for a little bit. I worked and helped to elect a prime minister, worked in 10 Downing Street as a senior policy advisor. So I've got a range of experience that I think gives me a good basis for developing the ideas and making them happen to turn things around in California so that we can make this the best place in America once again, to start and raise a family, to start and grow a business.
So I will add a little comment on myself. You know, you are just like many of our listeners or viewers, okay? We're first generation immigrant. Not every one of us, but many of us really love this country and love the place that we live in. So basically, yes. Can I say that you run for governor because you love California?
I love California, and I hate to see what's happened to California. There's something I say as a proud American. I'm an American citizen now, my family all American, and I think it's a very important truth about California. California means to America what America means to the world. So if you think about America as this shining symbol of freedom and opportunity and energy and ambition, I think that California represents the best of that, the place that is more like those best things about America than anywhere else. And yet over the last 16 years now, where Democrats have been running California with the taxes and the regulations and the endless hassle and cost of doing anything in California, they've taken away our freedom, they've taken away our opportunity. We now have the highest cost of living in the country, the highest rate of poverty in the country, the highest unemployment rate of all 50 states. Chief Executive Magazine does an annual survey of business conditions in all the states. California was ranked 50th out of 50 for business climate 10 years in a row. This is terrible. You look at US News and World Report, the publication, they do rankings every year. California is ranked 50th out of 50 states on opportunity. We should be the number one in all of these things. And so that's why I'm running for governor, to turn us around and put us where we should be, which is on top.
Is there any particular person or particular moment, particular event that trigger you say, I'm going to jump in because this uphill battle, and you are jumping it in? Any particular reason to make you make that decision?
Well, I was hosting a show on Fox News for many years called The Next Revolution.
Yeah, well,
and after my, as I said, most of my career was business or working in the government, making things happen, changing things. And so I really felt after a few years of hosting the TV show, I didn't just want to talk about problems, I wanted to actually solve them. And so I started a policy organization called Golden Together a few years ago to start looking into what's gone wrong in California and developing solutions, practical policy solutions. One of the first areas I worked on was housing. We have the highest housing costs in the country and the lowest home ownership. And when I tried to actually get an initiative onto the ballot, that didn't work. I was talking with legislators about how to maybe make it happen in Sacramento. And I do remember a meeting with one of the legislators, Democrat, who was supposed to be a good on housing policy. And I went through my plans, and one of them was involved eliminating what's called a private right of action. That means anyone can file a lawsuit under CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. And the reason for that is that I think it's something like 70% of lawsuits that are filed under this act, the Environmental Quality Act, are used to block housing. Most of those lawsuits are filed by unions, by labor unions, to use as leverage to extract conditions. And so one of my proposals was to abolish the private right of action, to eliminate these kinds of nuisance lawsuits. Anyway, I was talking to this legislator about it, and they said, oh, this is great. It would be transformational for housing. So I said, that's great. We can work together on it. And they said, oh, no, I couldn't support you publicly. I said, why not? They said, well, the unions would hate it. I said, yeah, but you just told me it'd be transformational. Oh, but they did this thing with their arm. They waved around. We were looking down on the state capitol from their office. They said, the unions run this place. Wow. And I just thought, that's crazy. That's not how it's supposed to be. We've got to have some change, some new management. And that's really, I don't want to say it's that exact moment, but around that time, I thought, I've been developing these solutions. I know what needs to change. And I think I've got the experience to do it. So I should get in and run for governor directly.
Mm-hmm. So, Steve, for most of the time, you actually lead the race for the governor race. In this race. What do you think is the reason? It's
I'm leading
to many people. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm leading because I'm putting forward a positive, practical plan. It's not ideological. It's not divisive. Everyone can get behind it. I call it Califordable. $3 gas, cut your electric bills in half, your first $100,000 tax-free, a home you can afford to buy. Califordable. These are things that are just common sense things we can do to make life less expensive, less of a hassle. in California, and I just think people respond to something like that. I'm not a politician. I've never run for office before. This is my first time, and I think people want an outsider to shake things up.
Okay, so I may ask you to repeat yourself, but I still need to ask this question. If you were to become the governor, what are the 3 most important changes that you're going to bring to the state?
Well, we have to cut the taxes, cut the regulations, and end the lawsuits. I mean, those are the 3 big things. Now, under each one, you've got a number of specific areas. For example, with taxes, we have to cut spending, and that's how we can cut taxes. The governor's just put forward a budget that's 72% bigger than the budget he introduced his first time around. Everyone looks at what's happening in California, and it seems like nothing's got better. Everything's worse. And so we've got to cut the spending, and my plan includes cutting taxes. The first part of the plan is to cut taxes for the people who've been hurt the most by these years of Democrat policies, and that's working class Californians. You have people making not that much money for California, 70, 80, 90 grand, but they're paying 9.3% state income tax. That's higher than the top rate in most states. It's outrageous. So I'm going to eliminate income tax for your first 100 grand of income. And then there's a number of other things that we're going to do, but it starts with taxes. Then you have to have regulations cut back because they're making it so expensive and difficult to run any business. And I've been working through each of the agencies, each of the areas of policy to show what we can do to make the changes there. And then I think that we've got to address these underlying problems that have driven the cost and hassle of everything up in California, the environmental regulations, the labor union power. There's so much we need to do.
Okay. On the realistic side, Steve, if you were to become a governor, don't you have to have the legislature for you to, reduce tax and so on and so forth?
Well, some of the things I think we can get consensus on. For example, I noticed that Katie Porter, one of the candidates running for governor on the Democrat side, she's endorsed my tax plan. She agrees with me about your first 100 grand tax-free. So that's an example where we may be able to get some cooperation. I think that generally speaking, when I'm elected, it'll be a huge shock to the system in Sacramento. And I think that it will open up opportunities for dialogue and for working together. I'm a very open person. I'm used to working across party lines. When I was working for a while in 10 Downing Street as senior advisor to the Prime Minister, it was a conservative Prime Minister, but we had a coalition government. And I shared an office in 10 Downing Street right there next to the cabinet room with my opposite number from another party. And we worked things out. And I think that's how I would approach it. But even if you don't get cooperation from the legislature, there's an enormous amount you can do through the executive branch, through the appointments you make to all these different agencies and executive orders that you give them.
Okay. So Steve, anyway, this is the state of California. This is a deep blue state. Why do you think that you, as running as a Republican, you have a chance to win this state?
Well, it's a much more Republican state than people think. If you look at the last governor's race in 2022, it's amazing, really. You had Gavin Newsom running for re-election. He'd been there for 4 years. He'd been lieutenant governor for 8 years before that, mayor of San Francisco, a really big figure in California politics, and he had a lot of money, tens of millions, I think nearly $100 million to spend on his campaign. On the Republican side, you had a guy called Brian Dahle. He was a state senator, didn't really do much of a campaign, raised about $2 million, something like that. Brian Dahle got 40.7% of the vote, nearly 41% of the vote. So that's just one benchmark. Another one that's important to look at is the total number of Republican votes that there may be in California. If you look at the expected turnout in the general election in November in California, based on the average of the last two, 2018 and 2022, the expected turnout is about 11.7 million people. So to win, you need around 5.9 million, something like that. President Trump in California in 2024 got 6.1 million votes. So there are enough Republicans to win. You just have to get them to show up on election time and actually vote. And so that's what it's all about. If we can get a really big turnout of Republicans, I think we can do this. It's not going to be enough. You're not going to get 100% of a presidential year turnout in a midterm election turnout. But we can, every step we take in that direction is helpful. And then we can win independents. I'm winning independents by a lot in most of these polls, and a few Democrats as well. We had an event the other week in LA, which was mainly Democrats coming along to see what we had to say. So I think that we've got a real opportunity here.
Okay, this is a somewhat sensitive question. Let me ask you anyway. There's enough criticism about the voting system of California, whether this is reliable or trustworthy. And there's this, the initiative called the voter ID, right, on the ballot. How do you think about that?
Well, I'm very much in favor. I campaigned hard to get voter ID on the ballot. I think it's very important that we try and do everything we can to restore faith in our elections, because the faith has been undermined by all these changes that have been made by the Democrats, especially by the Democrats, and especially in the pandemic. And so when people see mail ballots being sent out to millions of people, and they know that, they can see the ballots in there, they can see ballots sent to their own house that are for someone who doesn't live there anymore. And these things just going on just undermine people's confidence. Now, the good news is that things are moving in the right direction. We've had millions of people taken off the voter rolls who shouldn't have been there just in the last couple of years. You have the Supreme Court poised to make a decision that will mean that Election Day really is Election Day, and you can't have this situation of up to 7 days after the Election Day trying to find the number of votes. That leads to suspicion. And I think that those two things will help. But I think the main point is that whatever the system, it's very important to understand what President Trump said in 2024. Make it too big to rig. Make sure we get enough of a vote out that actually it doesn't matter if they try and do some shenanigans, because we'll have too big of a majority for them to wipe out.
Okay. All right. So, Steve, for Chinese Americans who cherish the freedom of America and really doesn't like the many change that is happening in this country, especially in this state, and you're a son of immigrants too, okay? So what do you want to say to my audience, the first generation or the son and the daughters of the first generation immigrant? What do you want to say to them?
Well, I'm the candidate of the legal immigrant community for the legal immigrant community. I want everyone to have a shot at that California dream, the ladder of opportunity, a good job where you make enough to raise your family in a home of your own, in a safe neighborhood, with a good school so your kids have a better life. Every single part of that has been destroyed by the Democrats, but it's particularly immigrants who love this country so much and who love California, legal immigrants, that we need to help, because that's the whole point of what they came to California. And when I say help, I mean help with clearing away the barriers that are in their way. I want everyone to be able to follow their dream in California, no matter what it is, whether it's just a simple basic dream of owning your own home and having a nice life with your family, or whether it's some amazing dream like starting a business that's going to take us to, Mars or whatever. It doesn't matter. California should be the place for immigrants to feel they can really make it better than anywhere else. And right now we are the opposite. People are leaving California because it's so hard to live here.
You are one of the immigrants, legal immigrants, that go out and try to change the society, change the world we're living in, okay? Most of my fellow people, countrymen, okay, they come in, they settle down, they try to, become economically safe. Their sons and daughters, they encourage them to become a doctor or a technologist or a lawyer and so on and so forth. Public service, okay. From your point of view, you came here as an immigrant. What's the reason or the readiness that it requires for one to dedicate himself to or herself to the public service? I just want you to say something from your personal point of view to my fellow, viewers and the listeners.
Well, it's sort of what I said at the beginning. I love this state, and I think I can help to turn things around. Most of my career has been in business. I ran restaurants, for example. That's a really tough business. I ran a consulting firm. I've done all these different kinds of things. And I know that actually I've got the capacity to turn things around and to bring people together. We have to do it for the future, not just of our children, our grandchildren, and our friends and neighbors. And we want young people to be able to stay in California and make their life here instead of having to leave to another state. But also, I think it's something that's very important for America, that we don't lose California, that California doesn't continue to decline. It's a very important part of our country. Think of all the amazing things that have come out of California, the tech industry, obviously Hollywood, on the amazing ag industry, life sciences and so on, biotech. There's just so much contribution we make to the world. And we've got to keep that going and expanding and thriving.
Okay. So do you see a special role that played by immigrants?
Well, yes, because immigrants are the way in which America shows its distinctiveness. That's the amazing thing about America, is that anyone can become an American. You can go to the UK, you can go to Hungary, where my parents are from. You could live there for 40 years, but you'd never be a Hungarian. Even if you got your citizenship, you got everything. Here in America, anyone can become an American as long as you sign up to what it means, as long as you do it legally, you come through the right process, and you absolutely commit yourself to the ideals of America. And that's why I hate to see immigrants who are trashing America. Then I think, go home if you hate it so much. You can't expect to come here to this country as a guest and then start to trash the place. That's unacceptable.
So what is American in your view?
What is American?
Yeah, what is a true American?
I think it is some combination of those ideals that I mentioned earlier, that sense of ambition and opportunity and energy and hustle. There's a phrase that I use all the time to talk about California. I call it the rebel spirit. The rebel spirit, where you're not going to be told what to do. You don't want to be put down. If you think there's a different and a better way of doing something, you go for it and you show them and you prove people wrong. I think that's at the heart what America's about. And I just think it's a beautiful example of everything that's best in humanity.
Oh, okay. For my viewers and listeners who concur with you and who want to support you, what do you want them to do? What kind of help do you need?
Vote. The election's on. It's a very, very tight race. I'm leading in the polls. That's good news. But it's also the case that you've got a couple of Democrats right there, Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer. And if we're not careful, you'll have we have a top two system in California where the two top candidates go to the general election, even if they're the same party. And there is a real possibility it could be two Democrats, which is a disaster for California. The only Republican candidate with a chance to get in the top two is me. So you got to vote now. Vote Steve Hilton. If you've got your ballot that's arrived in your home, I'm sure you have. And of course, you can support my campaign financially. We've got an army of small donors. We've built a huge base of support, but anything more is welcome. That's at stevehiltonforgovernor.com, F-O-R, stevehiltonforgovernor.com.
Any last word for my audience?
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate being with you. I love meeting so many of you in person. I did spend a year. I don't want to tread in any minefields now, so I'll just say the facts, which is I spent a wonderful year in Hong Kong many years ago, and before the handover, actually, 1995 to 96. And so I got to know Hong Kong very well, obviously, but also surrounding parts of China and South China Sea. And so I feel very, very connected to the Chinese American community and to you and to everyone. I just want to say huge thanks for allowing me to be with you today.
Okay, all right. I hope next time we talk, I will call you Governor Hilton.
That's the plan, exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming to my show.
Of course, thanks. Bye-bye.
好，那么以上就是我方伟的采访哈，不知道您看了怎么感觉？我一直跟大家讲哈，我说移民呢，第一代移民或者说移民的孩子，那么其实对美国带有非常独特的深厚的感情。我不知道你看刚才这个采访有什么感觉哈？我基本上问他说你为什么要竞选加州州长？就是他太爱加利福尼亚了，他不愿意让加利福尼亚丢掉哈，他认为这个加州对美国来说就好像美国对全世界一样，就像美国不能沦陷一样，加州是不可以沦陷的，这是他的意思。所以他出于对加州的爱才投入竞选啊。所以呢，就像怎么讲，像马斯克一样，马斯克是南非到美国来的哈，21岁才去到 UPenn 读书啊 ，University of Pennsylvania 宾州大学读书。那像这个布林哈，这个谷歌的创始人，他的爸爸妈妈呢也是前苏联人啊，前苏联犹太人。那另外像这个叫做卢比奥啊，国务卿卢比奥，他是古巴的移民啊。他虽然没有出生在古巴，但是他的外公教会了他古巴和社会主义到底是什么东西哈。 所以呢，我觉得今天这个采访，我不知道您有什么想法哈，欢迎您留下您的看法哈，留给你要给这个 Steve 啊，给他留句什么话，可以在下面留言，中文也可以哈。那我会把它收集起来，那送给 Steve。现在呢，还有就是现在呢，选举在进行了，我们华人真的要参与选举，不要觉得我们人少就不参与哈。那选举就是巨浪，就是由一滴一滴水来组成的，所以每个人呢，享有美国的自由啊，不用拿出生命来争取一个政治权利，只需要拿出一点时间。所以呢，非常鼓励大家参加这个，不光是加州啊，所有的地方的我们的观众啊跟听众都参与我们的民主选举哈，为这个国家的前进贡献我们的观察跟贡献我们的力量，好吗？好的，感谢您的收看。如果喜欢方伟节目的话呢，记得点赞啊，点赞跟转发，把这个采访转发给更多的朋友，让我们也帮助我们大家更多的认识一下Steve Hilton 啊是一个什么样的人。好吧，那另外这个将来下一步呢，方伟还有很多别的采访哈，所以呢就是记得订阅一下这个频道啊，就不会错过这个未来以后方伟的节目，包括这些采访的节目哈。好，谢谢啦啊，感谢您的收看，下次节目再见，拜拜。